by equals c, the numbers in front of x and y and the number that it's equal to means nothing to you. Let's talk about horizontal and vertical lines. If it's y equals a number, then it's going to be a horizontal line. If it's x equals a number, it's going to be a vertical line, because if it's y equals, then it's crossing the y-axis. So this is cutting through the y-axis. If it's x equals, it's crossing through the x-axis. This is the x-axis. Okay. Let's talk about a little acronym that can help you. So it's called HOIVUX. It might seem kind of silly, but I actually see a lot of little mistakes when it comes to graphing horizontal and vertical lines, and so write it down, use it, keep your notes out today whenever you're working on your homework, because, again, I see a lot of small mistakes, because it's easy to get these mixed up. Okay, so it's HOY, H-O-Y, horizontal lines. Horizontal lines have a slope of 0, so 0 slope, and are always y equals some number. Vertical lines, so this is VUX. Vertical lines have a slope of undefined. We'll talk more about that later in the week. And are always x equals some number. The x-axis, we have the y-axis. We are graphing at y is equal to 4. So we go to the y-axis and we put a point where y is equal to 4, which would be right here. That's where y is equal to 4. Now, it wouldn't make sense if we drew a vertical line because we're drawing it on the axis. We want to draw a horizontal line because it's horizontal, 0 slope, y equals a number. So we draw a horizontal line through that spot. Because at every single spot on this line, y is equal to 4. Because vertical is undefined and x equals a number, so we go to our, you can label x and y, my x-axis, and I go to 3, and I draw a vertical line. Because at every single spot on this line, x is equal to 3, it is cutting through 3 on the x-axis. The point where the line crosses, or the graph, crosses the x-axis, x-intercept. So if you guys know what interception means in football, it's like when, so one team throws a pass, right? And the other team, the guy like crosses that pass and he grabs it and he intercepts the ball. And so wherever the lines cross, so they cross at the x-axis, they're crossing right here, that's the x-intercept. This is the y-intercept because it's on the y-axis. So you have the x-intercept on the x-axis. The x-intercept, notice, is always a number and then 0, because on the x-axis, y is equal to 0 because it's not gone up at all. And then this one is always 0 and then a number, because on the y-axis, x is always equal to 0 because you haven't gone left or right. Here's how we solve. So I need you to write down these steps. That way when you forget, you can look back at these notes later and they'll actually tell you what to do. So when we're solving for the x-intercept, we plug in 0 for y, and then we solve for x. Please write your answer as whatever number you get, 0. 0 is because it's on the x-intercept, so on the x-axis, and so that's where y is equal to 0. We're going to plug in 0 for x. And then solve for y. And then you write your answer as a point. It'll be 0, and then the number that you get for y. You could even draw like a line down that. So you remember, don't go past that line because you need space for the other example. When you're working on this kind of problem, it's super helpful for me if I'm like grading your work, if you label it. So like this is my work to find the x-intercept. This is my work to find the y-intercept. You'll see me abbreviate it x-int, y-int, because I don't want to write out the whole thing. Okay, if you read your directions that we just wrote in the box, to find the x-intercept, we plug in 0 for y, and then we solve for x. So think about it, we're solving for the x-intercept, so we're going to replace the 0 where the y is, because if we replace it where the x is, then we can't solve for x. So since you're solving for x, guys, what is 3 times 0? 0. So basically we're going to end up getting to cross this out. But we're going to go ahead and write it down. So 2x minus 0 equals 18. Do I really need to write that minus 0? No. That is pretty unnecessary. So 2x equals 18. Guys, how do I get rid of that multiplication? Divide. You get x is equal to 9, but you need to write your answer as a point. I will say, on Big Ideas Math, for whatever reason, it wants you to just put your answer as a number. But when we're taking a test or quiz in this class, I'm going to expect you to write it as a point, because that's what it is. It's a point on the graph, and so you should write it as such. Okay, now we do the y-intercept, so basically the same thing, but now we need to leave the y, and we're going to put 0 where the x is, because we're on the y-axis, and that's where x is equal to 0. So 2 times 0, minus 3y equals 18. Guys, what's 2 times 0? 0. So you basically get to cross that out. And then you get negative 3y equals 18. How do I get rid of that negative 3? Divide. You could, if you want, like if this confuses you, you could put the 0 there. So since you know that multiplies to 0, you could leave it, but you don't have to. So divide by negative 3, and you get y equals negative 6. And you write that as a point, 0, comma, negative 6. So these are your two answers.
I'm literally being right. Who? Is his name James? James Gordon? That's what the heck? I don't like these when you exceed the answer limits because I clicked the wrong answer and now it doesn't let me. I only had to answer the answer once instead. Can you do it?
I think it's